In the not-so-distant future, Aurora Monroe has succumbed to an inexplicable madness and threatened to plunge the world into a permanent winter. The uncanny X-Force has stepped in to subdue this rogue storm. Led by Rogue Red, a copy of the original Rogue Green, the team of mutants defeated the Storm engines, but killing a god would prove to be a much more difficult task. 5 years later, 10 years into the Age of Revelation, Storm has tapped into her own primal urges, seeking blood and vengeance. On a warm night in Nigeria, Aurora sits alone, fixing herself dinner. A simple delicacy of fish cooked over an open flame. And for dessert, a peculiar choice. The Anisium knuckle dusters that she had once gifted to Rogue Red. She seals them in a ball of ice and swallows them whole, not too differently than the way she swallowed the ancient spirit Egoun so many years ago, after she had been resurrected as the Eternal Storm. But as Aurora washes down her meal, she discovers that she is not alone as she initially had thought, for Egoun himself has returned. Storm has spent the past 5 years in search of him, but he comes for her now. For what reason? The spirit only smiles with a devilish grin. Their dance, though long, is not about to stop just yet, and he has a few moves left to show her. But Storm's only interested in moves of her own, as she makes good on her threat. She cleaves the spirit in two, sending blood and strands of hair flying about. But her attack is in vain, as the spirit cackles into the night, before issuing a grim warning to the Weather Witch. Someone is coming to get her. The spirit then transforms, taking a form even more grotesque. But Storm cannot be fooled. She knows this isn't real. With his misshapen claw, he impales her and dares her to simply wake up. The voice of the malicious spirit melds with the voice of a friendly one, who pleads with her to wake up, warning her that someone is indeed coming. The spirit of Daniel Drum, brother of Dr. Voodoo, is with her. As Storm rustles from her sleep and climbs to her feet, the faint sound of a motorcycle cutting through the bush can be heard. Daniel warns Storm that she is about to die here, and he's concerned about what will happen to his remains when this occurs. But Storm warns the spirit to quiet himself before he gives away their location. The bike's engine and tire sounds grow louder and louder in Storm's ears as she closes her eyes. She does not need all of her senses. One will do. The bike comes to a halt. Can this truly be her friend, her brother, Gambit? But the sight of her Remy barely stays her hand as she readies another arrow, while speaking a spell which grants her Hunter's Madness. This is unlike the Storm who Gambit knows, who would never charge up for an attack without knowing who she's facing. But this is not the Storm Gambit once knew. This Storm has known betrayal, the likes of which Aurora of the past had never seen. But Gambit doesn't see much of anything these days. He simply hears. And though he's willing to give Storm the benefit of the doubt, he still needs to confirm if what he's heard is true. He needs to know what Storm has done with Rogue Red. The answer to his question is found 5 years in the past. Rogue Red and her uncanny X-Force had destroyed the joint consciousness, disabling the Storm engines. All that remained for them was one last push to end the climate cataclysm. At Rogue Red's command, the last remaining war beast took aim with his cannon and fired. Storm's fortress was decimated in an instant, leaving a giant smoldering crater. But in the eye of the crater, a single pearl of ice remained. Encased within was Storm. As the team slide down into the crater, Akujin remains at the top, peering down with hidden but troubling thoughts. Phantom X retrieves his canteen from his coat pocket, and after the pouring of libations, he demonstrates the difficulty of their plan by pouring the remaining alcohol on the orb that Storm is contained within. It turns to slush on contact, But the subarctic temperature of this force field is only one of its properties. Warpath tosses his vibranium knife to Phantom X, who shows that this dome is not only icy cold, but harder than steel itself. The air pressure inside the dome pushes against it with massive force, reinforcing it and enhancing its durability. Rogue questions Iceman, asking if he could melt the ice, but he's far better at taking heat out of something than putting energy into it, and against Storm's colossal mutant power, any attempt on his part would likely result in a months-long tug of war. In any case, Rogue Red is better suited for this task. Her Initium knuckle dusters had already made short work of the joint consciousness. Comprised of vibranium, adamantium, and mysterium, they'd surely get the job done, and Rogue Red would have it no other way. If her beloved Aurora is to die, then it should be at her hand. But in that moment, Storm looks up at her would-be executioner and breaks free herself. She grabs Rogue Red by the throat and orders her to either leave or die. Rogue Red tries to catch her breath, but even more disturbing sounds and sights fill her brain as Akujin enters the battle against her own team. And as she is forced to hear the suffering of her teammates around her, the love she once had for Aurora turns into pure, blinding hatred, causing her to summon her rarely used mutant ability, the power to strip away her opponent's abilities and make them her own. Aurora releases Rogue Red, sinking into the snow and ice with pain. But before she can claim full victory, Akujin approaches from behind and impales her with her blade. But a mortal wound is the least of Rogue Red's problems, for in her weakened state, Storm is helpless against the true danger that lurks within. A sinister clawed hand forces its way out of Storm's mouth, spewing out blood in the process. And as demonic laughter fills the air, Akujin can do nothing but bow her head in shame, for her betrayal has signaled the return of the evil Egoun. Rogue Red's bravery has ensured this evil entity's freedom. He thanks her for allowing his dance with Storm to continue. There is only one question now. How should Egoun deliver death unto Rogue Red? Should he leave her body intact or slice her into pieces? 5 years after the event of that day, Storm and Gambit are still having their standoff. The long-held bond that they share is the only reason why Storm's allowing this exchange to occur at all. She never judged him for breaking Rogue Red's heart by choosing Rogue Green, but it doesn't change the fact that he did indeed break her. So who is he to come like a chivalrous knight, demanding the whereabouts of a fair maiden? Gambit is a man torn. In his eyes, the outcome would have been the same if he had told Rogue Green about his feelings for another woman, even if that woman was her own copy. And as the former teammates continue their exchange, they're interrupted. An explosion sends mounds of earth hurtling into the air as Egoun towers above them. And this is not a dream. He was busy gathering up the world's mystics, making sure no one could stand in his way. Voodoo, Doom, Scarlet Witch, Steven, and Clea Strange, the world's most powerful magic practitioners, all pray to him, all food to him. And now, with his own army charging forth, Egoun plans to do the same to the Ascendant of Ashake, right before he plans to slaughter the entire world just to spite her memory. But Aurora refuses to let this be her final moment. She runs off and leaps from a cliff's edge, conjuring another spell. Lightning strikes from the sky as she calls it forth, but this is not an attack. The lightning takes the form of a giant bird, and as it soars through the sky, her battle axe charges with lightning trailing behind it once again, as she prepares to put this evil spirit down once and for all. If there was ever an award for an improved issue 2, it's gotta go to this issue right here. First of all, we got way more Storm than before. And not only that, but we're getting more context as to why Storm was doing everything that she was doing in the first place. We weren't given all the answers, but it definitely looks like Storm was doing this to keep Aegoun trapped inside of her. And the world plunging into a permanent winter was just a byproduct of her focusing all of her energy keeping him locked up. That's my theory at least. But regardless, Aegoun's return is easily the highlight of this issue, and I hope he is a permanent fixture in Storm's Rogues Gallery. But with all the pieces coming together smoothly in issue 2, I do have to go back and give props to issue 1, because now that we have some context, we see that a lot of what we read in issue 1 was more misdirections and red herrings. First off, we see Rogue Red's powers for the first time. Powers that we didn't even think she had, all because we saw her get those gifts from Storm. We assumed that she didn't have any powers at all. Add to that Akujin's comments about how she doesn't have Rogue Green's power. This line in particular makes us think that Rogue Red is completely powerless because of how we interpret Akujin's use of the word power. But now we see it was more power synonymous with physical strength. She just didn't have Rogue Green's ability to fly or her super strength. And all of that just makes Akujin's betrayal, as well as Aegoun's return, hit so much harder. In a similar vein, Storm's closing remarks at the end of issue 1 also have more context. When she asked the fishmen of Oshun where were the murderers that they were sheltering. We thought she was just looking for Rogue Red and the Uncanny X-Force, but now we know that she was looking for Aegoun as well. And the narrative isn't the only thing that this issue improves on. Issue 1 had a lot of great action, but we also see more magic as well. But this is still the Storm we've always known. Notice how she clocked the fact that Aegoun was in her dreams. Another sign of how Storm's mind is the last place you want to try and fight her in. And Storm's not the only one busting out all the magic chops in this issue. It's really living up to the whole sword and sorcery vibe. You've got the spirit of Daniel Drum assisting Storm. We've got magic sigils on the ground, keeping Iceman from reforming after he got sliced up by Akujin. And of course we have the big man on campus, Aegoun himself, who spent the last 5 years slaughtering all of the world's powerful magic users. Now I'm not gonna do my normal shtick where I go, man, I really wish we could have seen that. Because while I would have loved to see Aegoun take on all these guys, this is a 3-issue miniseries, so we have even less time than we did in Storm's solo series proper. And last but not least, we have the return of the Razor Bill. At least I assume this is the Razor Bill. Whether it's the same exact bird or not, I have no idea. But it definitely looks like the same species at the very least. But there it is, a masterclass on how to have a superior second issue. And I'm omega levels of hype for the 3rd and final issue coming next month. Comment below and let me know what you thought about Rogue Storm issue 2. And after that, you better click on this video right here and get more Primal Weather Witch Goddessness in your life. And until next time, keep simping.